G'day, I'm David Brown, and this week we're road testing the Hyundai i20N. And it's a clear example that Hyundai hasn't given up on the hot hatch. It hasn't just pursued sales through SUVs. And in this video, we will be looking at some cosmetic changes to the outside. We'll be looking at the drivetrain, which hasn't really changed. Inside, there's one significant bit of extra technology. Then, of course, we will be taking it for a drive. And then finally, looking at the market and what's happened, what's come, and what's gone, more particularly with the hot hatches in the Australian market. So on the front, it has a new bumper bar, it has a new grille and a flat Hyundai sign. Now, the PR department says that is a striking new difference, which is them searching for superlatives when there's only minor changes, but nonetheless, it's there to be seen and to be a bit different. So you can see that this has a sloping front bonnet, a little bit resplendent of sports cars in the past. And it took me a while to get used to it because we've been reviewing so many big SUVs and utes that they have this big solid front to them, that this is more subdued in a way. But there's actually a road safety issue that's come up recently, and that is a concern about the big front ends for two reasons. One is that you can't see very small pedestrians, maybe even in some cases children up to the age of 9 years old. And the other thing is it acts like a bulldozer. If it hits a pedestrian here, it throws them forward down onto the ground, and if the car still has some momentum, it will potentially roll over them. The more sloping bonnet will take out your legs, and that obviously is not a good thing, but a broken leg is a lot better if you then roll onto the bonnet and perhaps roll off. The potential is not to be rolled over. So I quite like the continuation of the sedan in that regard. While it has the sloping front area here, it has still the sort of more modern pods that we have on the side, which are very angular, and the lights, or more particularly around the lights, are very angular in their approach. They're not, say, like the Alpha with three round headlights in them. But it is, I think, with the red here, that's part of its signature as well, and we'll see that around on the side. So on the side here, the big difference is that they have their own new wheels and the rims that are part of it. I quite like that design. They call it the Y design. If you have a spoke that's like that, or it's like a fishing rod, you think of the end being very movable. Here, it spokes out from the center, but then widens out. And I think that gives a more solid feel to it. It feels like it's gripping onto the rim more severely, more permanently, more solidly, rather than necessarily just one spoke at the end where you might think about it not being as strong where you need it the most. There's actually a reflection there. If you go to Barcelona and to the Sagrada Familia Basilica, which is a huge big cathedral that's still being built 140 years later, by Antoni Gaudi designed it. He was a bit weird in some ways, but inside there's these beautiful big pillars, and at the top this stonework branches out, and it gives you a sense of solidity to it. And I think this does the same. By the way, 40 profile tyres, which is quite low profile, and that has its impact on better handling, but of course also a bit more road noise and feeling the bumps. Down the side here, again, the signature is really quite prominent of the red line across the bottom, a little bit of an angle just up from the sill there, just coming up this way, and a fairly strong waistline, not like some of the Hyundais that have a lot of creases and angles in here. But I think with the red and that's more than enough. And of course, you've got the red calipers for the brakes, which a colleague of mine says works beautifully well, even on the racetrack. Let's have a look around the back. Oh, by the way, it just tells me it's an i20. And these sorts of, I think, a little bit of angle there, which gives it its own feeling. Let's have a look at the back. It's a hatch. And perhaps the most significant thing is this one here. I think that adds to its sportiness more than anything. It's got angles and it's got diffuser type shapes to it and one exhaust pipe outlet. Inside, this is a small car. We're talking about something that's smaller than, say, a Corolla, but bigger than a Kia Picanto. And I find that the back there is 310 litres of capacity. Not huge, but it's not a big car. Now, you can fold down the seats, which give you more room, gives you about 1,230 or so space if you fold them both down, but you don't get them quite flat enough. The nice thing about it, though, is there's a bit of more space under here, but there is a space saver tyre buried within this, if I can get it up. Not your full mag, but at least something you can do, I presume, up to about 80k on. So it's quite usable space. Oh, it's got hydraulic arms, which is nice, but of course it's not powered. You wouldn't particularly expect that. Has got a windscreen wiper on the back. You may remember the Hyundai Ioniq 5 first came out. It didn't. People hated that. This does, and what a good idea. Now, I've got the passenger seat right the way back. Now, it's a small car, so it's looking a bit tight. But it is a sedan, but the seat's low, so it's not that hard to get into. Do you remember the problem I had with the SUV Alpha? Now, clearly that's pretty tight. There's not a lot of room here, but I can put my feet under the seat. It's not electric seats, of course, and it is a little tight, and I do sit no higher than the other people in the car, but it's functional enough. I think I could travel a reasonable distance in the back here if I had to. Not a lot in the back. There's no vents, no air vents, but there is one USB-C power plug point. Oh, it's got Bose sound systems. That's pretty good, isn't it? Getting out is proving to be just a little harder. But, you know, for not being an SUV, I still found that relatively easy rather than some of the SUVs which have a high seat, which has other benefits, but can make getting into it just a tad hard. Let's have a look at the powertrain, particularly the engine. I think you'll find this doesn't have the great benefit of hydraulic arms. But it's not too heavy because it's not too big a car. So it's a little bit more functional than some. Very neat engine. Oh, you notice there's no great covering over it. The covering over it can quite often be there to reduce sound. Do you want that in this car? That's a question that we will raise when we drive it. Now, the engine here is a 1.6 litre turbocharged, revs beautifully. It has 150 kilowatts of power and 275 Newton meters. But there is a boost button in there that will give you 304 Newton meters for a short while. Now, that's not huge, but this thing weighs only 1,230 or so kilograms. So power to weight is enough. Now, you're not going to get that huge, big, monstrous engine with ballsy power, or an electric vehicle that gives you that roller coaster suddenness, but you're going to have to drive it. And you know what? I really like that in a vehicle.
If you value independent journalism or simply enjoyed the video, please support the channel by hitting like and subscribe.
Now, getting in the car, the seat is low, and I feel low when I'm driving. The fact that it was low made it easy to get in, but for driving I might raise it up a bit, which is a hand crank and takes a bit of effort. The other thing you've got to do, of course, is turn off the speed limit warning. It's not that I object to having it, it's I object to the way it works. It beeps at you constantly, which would be fair enough if I was breaking the law, but it's based on the last speed sign it has seen. So if you're coming out of a car park and you have a 10 km/h speed sign, firstly, it makes you go slow in the car park. I have no problem with that. But then when I turn onto a road, and being a private exit, there's no signposting, it's beeping at me until it finds the next 50 or 60k speed limit sign. And of course, 40k in school zones, it can be a nuisance. I would really like it to beep at me once and then say, it's up to you. Because I have hopped onto a road and got going and it's beeped at me. I might have read 81 in an 80 zone, which, given the accuracy of the speedo with a bit of room for error, I would still be in the law. But I don't mind being told. Maybe being told once, but being told over and over again when it's not something that's my fault. It's like being a child. Don't like it. I will say one thing, the steering is firm. It's got much more feel to it than some other cars. If you saw our review just recently of the Alfa Tonale, we found that a bit wishy-washy. The gear lever here is nice. It's concise. It's not quite as sharp and as notchy as you get and might expect in a sporty car. I think the Mazda MX-5 is more along that line. I remember driving one of those, just hopping into it for a first time, drove down the road, came to a left-hand corner, wasn't hooning by any means, but just went back, snapped back to second gear. Ooh, and I felt an adrenaline rush. It just felt right. This feels smooth, easy, plenty of synchromesh, but it feels perhaps just a little normal. The sort of thing you might have got in an old, everyday sedan. Perhaps that's a little unfair, because it's certainly not sloppy. I once drove a 1959 Jaguar, which had such a sweeping movement to the gear lever that I felt like a left-handed tennis player playing a forearm shot. There is a feeling here that at about 50k, there's in fourth gear, there's like a drumming effect. It's not marked, not very loud, but this a case that you become conscious of it if you're on a smooth road and other sounds are diminished. It's here where the noise, vibration and harshness is perhaps at its worst. I'm doing 90 kilometers an hour in a 90 zone. It's not the smoothest road. It's not a lot of bumps, but it's that sandpaper type finish where you lay down tar and roll aggregate into it. And the amount of noise coming through here is not as comfortable as it could be. The question is, does the car make a bit too much noise? Or from some drivers' perspective, does it make enough noise? Not so much through the tyres, but of course through the exhaust pipe. Do we want it to rev and sound like a sports car? Well, on an open motorway like this, we're never going to find out. Because to rev it out, short of going back to second or third gear, you're not going to get the noise. And I'm stuck behind a slow van. Let's see what we can do. I'm in second gear. I'm doing 4,000 revs at about 66 kilometers an hour. I've got trucks and buses everywhere. If I were to have a bit of a break, I might be able to. I think we can have trucks pulling out so I can go in to the middle lane. Now I'm purely doing our second gear here, going up to my 80 kilometers an hour at about 5,000 revs. To being overtaken by a truck going up the hill. The first part of the road up to Mount Kira is wide enough to have a central line, not one on the side. So it gives you a sense of enjoyment that you're not going to have a car coming in the other direction. The thing about this car is it turns in nicely. And as you get into a corner, it keeps going. You don't lose the feel of the car. It's a lovely road. Cyclist, one has to be careful of. And the corners, of course, keep going. So you really have to have confidence in the car that you're not going to try and push your limits. We turn off the road onto Mount Kira Road, somewhat unimaginatively named, and immediately we lose the center line marking, which I think makes one a little cautious. A, the road is narrower. B, you don't know that the driver in the other direction is going to hold a line that's to your benefit. Now here, without center line marking, you really don't want to meet someone coming in the opposite direction like this. Could they have kept left more? Possibly. Did you want them to have to make a super fast decision because you were enjoying the car? No, I don't think so. That, I think, is defensive driving. What this car will do is it tells you that there's a double bend has been detected. So I've got a right, a short burst and down to a left, a short burst and down to a right, a line that our little Kia in front of us is taking carefully. Again, you heard the ding. It says there's a double bend. I guess it hopes you're paying attention. Oh, look, there's such a very short distance between the two bends. I wonder really whether that is all that essential. Perhaps if you get overworked up about coming out of one corner quickly enough and concentrating without looking enough ahead, then you perhaps a little warning about it's not just getting out of one corner, it's being prepared to get into the next one. I hope I concentrate enough not to need that. Either way, this is where the suspension and tyres are made more for a racetrack rather than this bumpy road. See, the corner just keeps going. The tendency to cheat the corner a bit, go over the double yellow line, which you shouldn't do, is all the more tempting with such a tight road, yet this car can do it. Because it's so sharp, it can just hold its line. This is enjoyable. Now here, without center line marking, you really don't want to meet someone coming in the opposite direction like this. Could they have kept left more? Possibly. Did you want them to have to make a super fast decision because you were enjoying the car? No, I don't think so. That, I think, is defensive driving. While the i20N has only had a few cosmetic updates, what really stands out is that it shows Hyundai's continued commitment to the hot hatch formula, a punchy little hatchback with a manual gearbox that delivers genuine driving joy. More power to them for keeping that spirit alive.